Through some of the key decisions on over this squad?
Yeah, we kept a lot of the principles that we've had since I've come in, which is opportunities to get new young players into the environment, to give them exposure to the senior team, not just the players, but the training sessions and also games. So always trying to find a really good mix of our experienced players with some youth and uncapped to make sure that we're keeping the squad depth growing as we move through this campaign.
Obviously, waited a really long time for someone to put their hand up for that striker's jersey. Elise Hughes has really done it in the last few months and had a brilliant season with her club. Obviously, the big change from the last camp is you're now without her for the remainder of the campaign.
This is football. Injuries happen. They're obviously awful and upsetting, and in the women's game, ACLs are quite a reality at the moment. Very, very sad for Elise, but also excited that we'll hopefully have her back once we qualify for major tournament for the Euros. But it gives, again, opportunity. We have to see it like that. She played very well for us. So did Kaylee Green coming in. We've got Mary McAteer, who's been training here. We've got Olivia Francis coming in that position. So you've got to see these unfortunate setbacks as opportunities, and that's how we'll be looking at it.
Kelly Barton, obviously, is someone very experienced in that role, albeit with a new name. That's presumably really helpful for you. You've got someone who you know is used to the position that you can rely on.
I think you know with Kaylee Green / Barton that you're getting someone who will give everything for the badge. What I've really enjoyed watching is a little bit more composure around the net, and I'm not saying that she's not a great goal scorer, but in the past I think she's rushed her opportunities almost because she's done too much work. She's running the channels. She's been defending for about 3 different people. So we've got a quality person here, and we've been working hard to keep her around the net, to keep her around central areas of the pitch, and it paid dividends in the last campaign. And I think I want to pay. Well, I think she deserves a lot more accolades than she gets because she's such a wonderful team player. And we talk about Elise Hughes, who had a wonderful tournament. And when you're a more experienced player, you've been around a long time, like Kaylee Barton, it's always upsetting to not see your name in the starting lineup. And she's always been big support for our young players coming through. And then when she has her opportunities on the field, she's done really well. So we're fortunate to have her with us.
I should have asked you, have you spoken to Elise since
Yeah, I've spoken quite a bit. We usually just WhatsApp. It's an interesting time. I think every player handles it differently. Obviously, when it happened, her team hadn't yet qualified for the WSL, so she's been through a roller coaster with being the top goal scorer with the team, then qualifying, and then this sort of downward of like, okay, now it's time for the operation and recovery. So she's been in touch, but she's just going at her own pace, and we've talked a lot about that. Every ACL is different, and every recovery is different. So the most important thing is to make sure that as she is coming back to the team, obviously the surgery has happened now, so every single day now is her road to recovery. She's doing that as an individual and not in comparison with anyone else.
Captaincy became a big issue on the last camp, obviously because of Sophie's announcement and Jess's 150th cap and the time with that. I know you said you're in no rush to appoint a permanent captain.
Yeah.
Do you have in mind what you're going to do this camp, and can you tell us?
No, I can't. No, I think issue sounds very negative. I think we're in a position where Sophie did one of the most selfless things I've ever seen in football. I think it's quite normal for sports teams, that whomever wears the armband wears it until it's sort of ripped off of them or they stop making the team. Sophie has always been someone who has this future outlook, what's best for the team moving forward, and so this was an amazing moment. And in that same way, I want to respect what she's done and not rush to appoint someone. There is a lot of pressure to maybe name someone. I'm feeling it, but I'm not actually. I think there are a lot of women on this team who could wear the armband and are leaders in different ways. So I'll take my time to make that appointment.
And on this camp, do you have in mind who it's going to be? And
yes.
Are you going to just kind of wait until the game and we'll see what we see?
I know who will be wearing the armbands, and the team themselves. I actually named the team quite early. So a couple days out, because as anyone who's played any sport, in the sessions leading up to the game, you sort of are starting to already put the starting lineup together. And the players know what's going on. So I do my best to name the lineup quite early, and that's also when I'll name for them the captain.
So I'll ask you again on match day -1, if that's okay.
That will work.
What are you looking for from these two games? Because obviously Ukraine, on paper, the toughest opponents Wales have played, but of course they have lost a game to Croatia.
Yeah.
So maybe difficult to judge, but what are you after from these two games?
Yeah, I thought Ukraine actually had a more dominant display than Croatia in their game, and that's football. Results go different ways. So Ukraine will be a great test, a good, a new team for us to prepare for. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think we've set a standard, but there was a lot that we needed to improve on. We know that these games are important for me to bed in my own philosophies and ideas, for them to get used to me and the technical staff, for them to get used to each other with a lot of different players at different rotations, but all in preparation for playoffs. And this is a new opportunity for us to raise the bar, to really tighten up some of the areas which I thought we were a little bit loose on, which is natural. I don't mean that as a huge criticism. I gave them a lot of leniency, a lot of leeway to explore what I was asking them to do, and then now there's tightening up that needs to be done to prepare for stronger opposition, and Ukraine's that next team in front of us. Thank you very much. Hi.
You talked about Kaylee there, but Mary's coming off a really good season in the Championship. Liv's coming off a really stellar campaign with the United under-21s. Do you feel like, even though they are young, they are ready to step up to that number 9 shirt if needed?
Yeah, I think that's why we have training camp leading in. So what is ready? I think there's the physical readiness, there's the mental readiness, and that's a piece that, we just have to be careful and nurture these players, make sure we're not pushing them too early, too quickly, because we have a need. We don't. There's different players we can put in that role. But age is, in sport, it's almost... I wouldn't say irrelevant, but some players are ready for the senior team at 15 and some are making it at 25. There's no right or wrong. That's when you're ready. So I don't really care how old a player is, whether it's on the upper ends or whether it's the lower ends. If you're able to deliver and sort of fit in terms of that cultural piece as well as being prepared for it mentally, then you're ready to step on the field for your country.
And on that, so the amount of players that are playing week in, week out towards the end of the season, whether that's in WSL Championship or abroad, just how pleasing is it to see all these players get minutes before 2 really crucial games?
Yeah, there's nothing like being on the field, especially I think for me, we've had 2 training camps this last month just to give opportunities for players that maybe are right on the peripheral of my 23, 26 with the youth players I bring in. And I can't judge them unless they're playing. That's a reality. If they're not in my 26, it's very difficult for them to break into it. So I think it poses great questions of me. It makes sure that my staff, but also our scouting network, is working overtime to make sure that we've got all those players being monitored and we're following them, and that they feel and see that they're being monitored as well, which I think is really important, that they know that they're part of the greater base that we're working with, and they're not sort of off on the side. They're actually a big part of what we're trying to do here.
One final one for me. For all the players who are playing, Hayley Ladd has perhaps not played as much as we thought she would, having signed a new contract, when playing half the games at United this season. How surprised are you of the lack of game time up there?
I'm newly arrived into this position, and I find it strange. I value and I recognize that Hayley is a top player, can play across many different positions. I think in our Kosovo game, she played center back, she played 6, and she played 8, if not 10 as well. She was all over and playing at a very impressive level. So I don't know why she's not playing. I think that was a surprise. Jem Evans also didn't play much in their last game. I went up to watch, and these women have contracts coming up, and Man U's a top team. And as their international manager, yes, of course, I think they should be playing, but I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and I'll settle in and then start asking maybe those questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You touched on with Lisa's injury there about ACLs. I think there's been some research into it. Just got some wider thoughts on why there's so many ACLs.
Well, I have a degree in English, so having, thoughts on ACLs, I would say the research is not finished. It has only just started. Women have had a lot more knee injuries than men for many, many years. And finally now I think people are recognizing this isn't just a small problem, it's a major problem in the women's game. And I can only theorize that it's connected to a real uptake and like the number of games they're playing, the stresses on their bodies. And a lot of our girls, women, are not getting top training until much later. So 15, 16 we're talking about. So academies are starting now. So these players will then maybe be prepared for the load, but we're actually putting women who only had maybe their first full-time coach when they were 15 or 16 into sort of 2-3 game weeks sometimes. So I can only theorize there's a fatigue that they have that hasn't been accounted for. Immediately their off season is very short. The men are complaining about it now. Well, the women have, it's just happened very suddenly. So I'm personally not surprised there's been a lot more injuries, but I look forward to seeing the science behind it as someone who only has my thoughts and nothing behind them.
But maybe changes to the calendar, hopefully one day.
Yeah, that's a bigger discussion point. We have got FIFA calendar already changed on us with no July window and 3 games in windows. It's coming up. So changes in what way and what's best for the player, what's best for the audience, what's best for TV, who are we actually getting behind? I think these are much wider questions, and probably for Europeans and British specifically. As a Canadian coming in, I can't speak to it with any kind of history right now, but you can see that it's something that really needs to be looked at.
No questions? Great. No, thank you very much, Jeff Powell.